We're all familiar with the claim that the US dollar has lost 96% of its value since the early 1900s, and this has been applied by the Federal Reserve to take away people's wealth, and that this is inflation, and that this is an attack upon the people and the wealth that they hold. I mean, this is repeated by Ron Paul libertarian types, and also by Zeitgeist people, and was also featured in the very first Zeitgeist movie. Of course, this statement isn't exactly true, and let me tell you why. The argument goes something like this. A goods or service that was purchased for $1 in 2006 would have cost 4.9 cents in 1913, and that this is indicative of a price increase of about 1,930% since that time. True. But guess what? Average earned income increased by 6,560% during that same time period. The average earned income rose from $740 a year in 1913 to $49,300 a year in 2006. Adjusting for inflation, $740 a year in 1913 is about $15,000 a year in 2006 dollars. Average incomes not only kept pace, but beat price inflation by 230%. I should also point out the massive increase in living standards from then until now. True, $740 a year didn't get you very much back then, just as $15,000 a year wouldn't get you very much now. This is what they're not taking into account, that as inflation increased, so did wages. This also doesn't take into account the massive increase in living standards that occurred during that time. Sure, $740 didn't get you very much back then, just as $15,000 a year now wouldn't get you anything. This is what they're not taking into account, the fact that wages also kept up with inflation and exceeded it by 230%. Inflation isn't a problem at all unless wages don't keep up with it. That's how you actually measure whether or not the population got robbed. Now, many Ron Paul supporters would be very quick to point out that a dollar saved in 1913 would only be worth about 5 cents today, and that indicates a huge drop in value. You have money that's over 95 years old that's been saved? In fact, almost the majority of the US population doesn't have any savings whatsoever. And in fact, most people who do have large savings that could even be considered that old are already tremendously wealthy and replenish that wealth all the time. So that loss over 95 years doesn't actually mean anything. Now, I'd also like to include the fact that inflation actually helps people who owe debt. That actually makes debt easier to pay back, because you have to pay back less dollars in the end because the amount of dollars increased. So inflation is actually a good thing if you owe money. And so, no, while the dollar did decrease in value, wages went up with it. So it literally doesn't even matter. And besides, if an economy expanded, like say how the US has expanded its economy in the last 100 years, you also need to increase the supply of money to go along with it, or commodities can't move. This is another argument why a deflating currency is a bad thing. It just takes a little bit of simple knowledge in economics to see the failing of a belief like this. Thank you for watching. Please comment and rate the video. If you liked it, hit subscribe or check out some of these other great videos. If you wish, share it on social media. While you're at it, why don't you follow me on Twitter? And if you got time, go on over to the MRN bookstore and check out some of the latest books available.